pet owner, you've probably been noticing that your vet bills have become more and more expensive over the years. But it's even worse than you might think. The cost of vet care has gone up by 60% in the last decade. That's double the rate of inflation in the same time period.
Hey y'all, let me stop the video and explain a few things before we get into it. What is private equity? Private equity refers to investment funds that buy and manage private companies, meaning businesses that aren't traded on public stock markets. These investors typically aim to improve a company's profitability and then sell it later for a profit. What are private equity firms? Private equity firms are companies that manage these investment funds. They pool money from wealthy individuals, pension funds, and institutions to buy businesses, restructure them, and increase their value, often focusing on maximizing financial returns. In recent years, private equity has been buying up vet clinics and animal hospitals across the country. While these firms aim to boost profits, critics say it's driving up the cost of care and putting financial pressure on pet owners and veterinary staff. But it's not just vet clinics. Private equity firms are expanding their reach far beyond animal hospitals. They've been rapidly buying up everything from nursing homes and emergency rooms to dental practices, dermatology clinics, and even addiction treatment centers. In some industries, they're creating near monopolies, consolidating local providers under one corporate umbrella. Now, while private equity claims to improve efficiency and service, critics argue it often leads to higher prices, worse working conditions, and lower quality of care, all in the name of profit. Okay, so let's get back to the video.
When you consider that more than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck,
60%, 60%.
Is it even possible to own a pet anymore? Now, this all really hit home for me personally when my dog Utah got sick. Aside from chasing frisbees, my lovable 8-year-old cattle dog loved food. So when I noticed that she wasn't interested in eating, I knew something was very wrong. I took her to the vet, and after some tests and x-rays, they told me that she had fluid in her chest and that it was critical. So I rushed her to an emergency hospital called Blue Pearl, where they ran even more tests and x-rays. But with no clear diagnosis, the only definitive thing they gave me was the bill. $3,258 that I had to pay on the spot. Now, that didn't even include the surgery that she might need, which would cost thousands of dollars more. This was the beginning of a 6-month journey trying to save our dog's life, taking her to different vets and spending thousands of dollars in the process. We were desperate to help her, but I also started feeling a little bit exploited, and I know many Americans are going through the same things.
I just got financially assaulted by my dog's vet.
Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
The veterinary industry is a f***ing racket.
Animal health care is a f***ing scam.
When I started looking into it, I found endless complaints of vet bills through the roof, unexpected charges, and people feeling like they had no choice but to pay up.
Veterinary medicine is the gold rush of 2024.
I call it the rise of big vet.
These massive private equity firms are buying up veterinary clinics in the hundreds all across the United States.
We talked to veterinarians and journalists to find out exactly why your vet bill has gotten so high and how the same forces are coming for everything from your dentist to your favorite sports team. Americans weren't always obsessed with pampering our furry friends. Early pet ownership was for more practical purposes. Think more barnyard cat and less Barney. But as cities grew, so did our affection for pets. And over the past few decades, as families grew smaller and people got lonelier, pets became part of the family. Pet ownership in America has exploded in recent years. 94 million households now have pets, with 23 million of those adopted during the pandemic. And it's big business. Americans spent $38 billion on pet health care last year, with costs climbing about 10% a year. This is financial journalist Helene Olin.
The thinking is that people will do anything for their pets and that they will spend any amount of money that it takes. And this is in part where private equity and corporations, again, come in to the veterinary business. They see people who will pay the bill no matter what.
She says as pets have become humanized, their care did as well.
25 years ago, if your pet needed an MRI, it was often hard to find. There were a few doctors doing it here and there, but you didn't really see it. It wasn't that common. Now, it's an extremely common procedure, and that's in part also because of the rise of big vet.
Like me, she found out about all this and wrote about it after her dog got sick, her late poodle Katie.
I get a diagnosis that my beloved dog is dying in the heart of that awful winter of the pandemic. I got the list of recommended cardiologists, right? And I look and I see everything seems to be VCA, Blue Pearl. And so I was distraught, but there was a part of me that's thinking, gee, why am I getting all the names of these chains? Aren't there independent cardiologists? This is a little strange.
The vet at VCA put Katie on a $300 a month medication that did end up extending her life. But boy, that price tag was tough to swallow. So was what Helene found out next. VCA, her dog's clinic, wasn't even owned by vets. It's owned by Mars, the candy company behind Skittles, M&Ms, and Snickers that has a net sales of $50 billion a year. They own various clinics and hospitals, as well as pet food and products. The Mars family also happens to be one of the wealthiest in the country.
VCA is Blue Pearl is Banfield, and they're owned by Mars. They are the largest owner of vets in the United States. They have over 2,000 veterinary clinics. The second largest is another family-owned group, JAB, based in Europe. They own NVA, National Veterinary Associates, and Pete's Coffee, Einstein Bagels, Panera, and your dog and cat.
Over the last decade, massive corporations and private equity firms have been taking over vet care at an alarming rate, owning up to 50% of clinics and up to 75% of emergency hospitals. They're also snapping up pet insurance companies and even pet food brands. Among the companies with ties to private equity are PetSmart, Pet Vet Care Centers, Figo, Thrive Pet Healthcare, even ASPCA Pet Health Insurance. This made me wonder, why does Wall Street find pet care so appealing?
They see steady money in this business. For private equity, they see a business where they can cut costs or control costs, while bringing in cash, and then sell to a bigger player within the next 4 to 6 years. Or at least that's the hope.
Now that's not just the hope, that's the business model. It's part of something called a roll-up strategy. Private equity buys up practices one by one until they amass dozens.
And the idea is to buy them so that you control more practices and ultimately, hopefully, flip them to a bigger player. Because private equity, unlike, say, family ownership and independent ownership, is not in it for the long haul.
During the pandemic, interest rates were low and borrowing money was cheap. So companies borrowed lots of money and bought up lots of clinics and hospitals.
It's about at this time that you start seeing the veterinary prices start really surging.
And of course, this is during the pandemic when people are also getting more pets, like they're at home with their pets. And what impact has that had on vet care and vet clinics?
It affects it like it affects anything in the healthcare sector. Corporations consolidate so that they have greater pricing power. So you can raise prices higher, you can cut back on quality of service if that's how you feel you're going to need to make more money.
In other words, pricing goes up and quality goes down. And it's not so great for the people working in veterinary care either.
I wanted to be a vet ever since I was 5 years old.
This is Melissa Azell, a vet at a small animal clinic in Alabama.
So, Melissa, why did you decide to become a vet?
I've always loved animals, dogs and cats especially. I wanted to be able to be part of a profession where I felt like I was making a difference.
Melissa worked at Banfield, a corporate pet hospital, and then at an independent clinic in Alabama that was bought up by National Veterinary Associates, owned by a private equity firm called JAB. Soon after it was bought, she said she started noticing some big differences in how it was run.
There's a lot of people in those management positions who don't even have any experience in the veterinary field. When I was working for Banfield, one of our regional managers had worked for a Walgreens pharmacy, and that was the closest experience that she had with veterinary medicine.
Melissa says she and her team also started feeling pressure to increase profits. They had a set number of patients with an allotted time for appointments. They worked with less staff for longer hours, and the company required their patients to have treatment plans.
Sometimes they will put a lot of things in the plans that aren't totally necessary. It's not something that you can opt out of. There are things that, in theory, might you catch some things earlier than you would have otherwise? Sure, but does every single puppy that comes into a clinic need a DNA test? No.
And the same thing with standardized protocols built into software.
If you're, this specific patient, you're like, oh, well, due to their breed, this drug may not be a good one. I would rather use this. I'm worried about their kidneys. I want to adjust this. You may or may not have the freedom to do that. And generally those things, if they're made by executives, they are based on things like papers, consensus statements, that kind of thing. But again, there may or may not be any customizability.
Wow, I didn't know that. And do you think that these protocols are designed for profit?
Is that how they design them?
Yeah.
So to maximize how much money they can get off the patient per visit.
I did not know that.
We spoke with many vets and techs for the story who described similar problems at private equity-owned clinics: corporate pressure, cost-cutting, and toxic work environments. Some even said the stress was so bad that clinic managers were developing ulcers and losing their hair.
It's really stressful when you feel like you can't do your job appropriately because your job affects patients' lives and the quality of medical care that they're getting. And, medical care isn't cheap.
No one except for Melissa was willing to go on camera out of fear of losing job opportunities in an industry that is rapidly being taken over by private equity. But Melissa eventually left NBA and found a job at a private clinic where she says she is much happier.
Money isn't everything. You have to be able to pay your rent and you have to be able to buy groceries, but you could get paid all the money in the world, and if you aren't made to feel like your company cares about your well-being, that's not a good alternative.
Another bad alternative is going bankrupt. We've also seen how private equity doesn't just drive up prices while lowering quality of service, but also puts businesses at risk. Take Envision Healthcare, a massive physician staffing firm that private equity giant KKR bought for $10 billion in 2018. KKR had only $5 billion, so they borrowed the rest. Envision's way of making money? Loading patients with medical debt. The company eventually collapsed under its own debt. Incidentally, KKR, which is reported to have investments in everything from Israeli weapons manufacturing, surveillance firms, oil pipelines, West Bank real estate, electronic music festivals, and nursing homes, is also one of the major investors in vet clinics as well. And it's not just healthcare. Private equity is taking over everything, from portable toilets to car washes to mixed martial arts, even fire trucks. More Perfect Union did an episode about it, and it was one of the reasons so many fire trucks were out of commission when the LA fires broke out, leading to disastrous results. So if private equity's foray into healthcare and other industries like fire trucks have created such outrage and have caused so many companies to fold, the concern is the same thing could happen to vet clinics and hospitals too. So is anyone doing anything about it? The answer is yes, sort of, but not much. A few years ago, the FTC stepped in and passed antitrust laws.
When JAB bought a whole bunch of clinics, they put conditions on them. They had to report in certain states, including California and Texas, Any purchase near one of the, I believe it was the specialty care clinics they already owned prior to completing the purchase. That was under the Biden administration, Lena Khan-led FTC. So whether that's going to go anywhere post the Trump administration, nobody seems to know.
The Trump administration has been very friendly to private equity, refusing to close a tax loophole that largely benefits private equity fund managers. And just recently, considering an executive order to allow 401ks to invest in private equity. Meanwhile, some states have passed laws to try and stop anti-competitive behavior, and they've made it illegal for non-veterinarians to own clinics to try and prevent corporate interests from influencing vets' judgment. But honestly, I would expect to see more of these chains, not less, as private equity firms buy up even more clinics and expand into other pet services. Just last year, private equity company Blackstone purchased Rover. It's an online pet sitting and dog walking company. And Jab Consumer Partners is buying up pet insurance. And the sad thing is, we know that as prices continue to go up, people don't take their pets to the vet as often, or they abandon them altogether.
Whether that's pets not getting treated for heartworm or fleas, whether that's the uptick in shelter intakes, which a lot of shelter people believe is partly as a result of the private equity and corporate players in the veterinary business raising prices so that people can't afford to take care of pets.
For my partner and me, it was not easy to pay all the bills for Utah's illness, but we had so much hope and just kept forking over cash. More than $15,000 total. But even after her surgery, the fluid kept coming back, and her health kept declining. It was getting to the point that she was having trouble getting up. We knew the time had come. It's the pact that we make with our pets, that we're going to be there for them to ease their pain and do what's best. So we took her on a final golf cart ride, something that she loved to do, to the beach by our house one last time. And a vet came to her home that day and put our girl to sleep on Valentine's Day. She passed peacefully at home with us and her favorite frisbee and ball by her side. The experience obviously left us grieving our dog, though there's nothing that we wouldn't have done for her. And that love is what private equity is exploiting.
The fact of the matter is no matter how you look at it, your pet is a number on somebody's spreadsheet.
I always tell my clients, like, there are no stupid questions. Ask questions and be involved in the care that your pet is receiving. And if there's things that you don't like, then stand up for, yourself as a pet owner and stand up for your babies and ask why.
Now, don't get me wrong, the vet care I found at independent clinics was expensive too. That's partly just due to advancing medical technology that comes with progress. But that's an expected increase in cost. Private equity, on the other hand, is squeezing the industry to the point where owning a pet might become impossible, whether that's due to rising prices and falling quality of care, or whether they drive vets into bankruptcy in the future, like they have with other types of human healthcare.